Would you like to get warm inside? I could hardly get by on my own, but one day, in the park, I helped a homeless mother and her daughter. I lived in abject poverty. I had no idea why I acted in that way. Then, the firm I worked for lost its president unexpectedly, and the vice president, who was the president's younger brother, took over as president. I was feeling really depressed after I was dismissed for an unknown cause. But the daughter said, "Welcome back," with a small smile when I arrived home. "You've put in a lot of effort." Alex is my name. I work in an office as a single 29-year-old. I go by Lex among my school pals. Though I'm not very cool, I think it's a nice nickname. With my black hair and glasses, I project a dismal picture that makes me seem very mediocre, if not below average. I don't actively interact with people, although I can be thoughtful of others. Above all, my living conditions tell you that I am impoverished. In my opinion, my place is worse than that of a struggling college student. My rent for this cheap flat is only $130 a month. Though there isn't a wall dividing the two rooms, the apartment is really just one large space. The fact that the toilet and bathroom are apart is only due to the age of the structure. The floor is old, the rooms are thinly divided by thin walls, and the kitchen is small. Even somewhat loud voices can be plainly heard, albeit it's not like you can hear every sound. There is hardly any privacy. I hear a couple arguing next door right now. It's intolerable since it's not just arguments. Sometimes I can hear their private moments. In addition to the sounds of the neighbors, I can hear loud music coming from open windows outside and the sounds of illegally modified bikes. I therefore retreat to my room to decompress during these boisterous periods. Even though I don't yell or shout, talking angrily to myself at a reasonable volume makes me feel a little better. Verbally releasing my pent-up worry lifts my spirits. I find it more satisfying to express it aloud, but some people feel putting it down is good. It's free, and the very mention of it lifts my spirits. Give up the loud noises already. I'm not shouting, so no one is bothered, and my neighbors probably don't even notice. But at my age, one subject that often comes up is what's known as the marriageable age. Yes, please, I would like a girlfriend. Not that it's something to boast about, but in my 29 years, I have never had a girlfriend. I can't now afford to have a partner, but some of my peers already have children. I don't have the money to support her, even if I did. My student loan debt is the main source of my extreme poverty, and I'm barely making ends meet on a job that barely covers my living expenses. Becoming a parent seems like a far-off dream. At the workplace, despite my struggles, I'm seen as a hard-working employee who completes tasks on time. When I got to work one day, I saw some coworkers chatting. James, one of my coworkers, rushed over to ask me what was going on. "Alex, there's been an incident." An incident? I had assumed there might have been embezzlement, but that was not the case. The president passed away suddenly. What? But as of yesterday, he was OK. That's why it's a sudden death. Mr. Bellamy, the president, had a distinguished appearance and was a dapper gentleman. He appeared to be an industrious man and always had a straight gait while wearing a suit. He appeared to be alert and steady on his feet, giving everyone in the office the impression that the company was still safe. I had seen him about the office a few times. Thus, everyone believed the company was in capable hands. Who do you think will be the next president? Well, there's probably going to be him, based on the hierarchy. Him. James was referring to Robert, the president's younger brother. Robert visited the office every now and then, but neither I nor the other staff members thought well of him. Why is he even the vice president? Because Mr. Bellamy was a family man at heart and could not leave them. Still, does he really produce any work? It was difficult for me to respond to this question. Robert was ultimately named the next president. It was logical since they couldn't hold onto the presidency indefinitely. If that occurred, other businesses may view us with contempt, and some might even attempt to profit from the circumstance. Nevertheless, we felt nervous because Robert would now be in charge of the business. This was due to Robert's lack of involvement in the business up until this point. I had my doubts that he even knew how the business operated. If you were going to be president, you would normally at least take a cursory look at management. Despite its small size, our company employed a respectable number of people. Providing for all of their families is a significant commitment. Robert did not really work as vice president, despite having that title. It seemed that several workers had witnessed him gambling on a regular basis. These games may be enjoyable when you win, but when you lose, they cost you a lot of money. And after a significant win, it's simple to get into the trap of thinking, next time for sure, and to keep putting money in, which leads to a losing streak. We were very uncomfortable knowing that Robert, the new president, had been engaging in such activities. However, there were more causes for concern regarding Robert. "Oh man, I'm only feeling dread, James. I mean, there are rumors he messed up at his previous company too." "Got it wrong. Do you mean that he ran afoul of his boss?" "Exactly." This was a widely recognized tale. Robert had a reputation for losing his anger and had already run afoul of his supervisor at his previous job. And that was only 6 months after his enlistment. I was first taken aback by it. Nowadays, most people prepare themselves for the ordeal of a new company's first year. Giving up after only 6 months seemed really self-centered. Then the benevolent Mr. Bellamy appointed his impoverished brother vice president, though it's likely that he also attempted to force him to work. It wouldn't have been much use even if he had forced him to perform the vice president's duties. Indeed, it is true. Now that he's president, I hope he grows a little more mature, James remarked. James had little chance of realizing his dream. Individuals are not easily changed. Emma from accounting had been in charge of most business affairs up to this point. Emma was a well-known yet enigmatic figure. None of us had ever seen her before or had any idea of her appearance. It was also widely known, though, that the former president possessed a great deal of faith in her. She was virtually a legendary character we never saw because she was constantly locked up in the accounting room. We had never had a conversation over the phone. As Robert assumed the presidency, I was curious about Emma's future. As an employee, however, there was little I could do about it. But my fears quickly came to pass. When Robert unveiled his policies in his inaugural speech as president, we were all taken aback. "Robert, I'm the next president. There won't be any more leniency now that I'm in charge. I'm not sure how my brother handled things. I will not spare those who disobey my policies. I will fire them all." The older staff members clicked their tongues and mumbled things like "stupid brother" in response to the haughty and conceited speech. Going forward, a numerical goal will be discussed at every morning meeting. If it is not met, there will be a salary reduction. Put up a lot of effort and be organized. What? Yelled my mind, though I didn't speak it aloud. While setting goals is one thing, cutting pay for not reaching them is just plain oppressive. Pay attention. At work, quick thinking, discernment, and decisiveness are crucial. Do not procrastinate in an attempt to accrue overtime compensation. That's simple for him to say, but in many cases, overtime is unavoidable. That's just the nature of the job. However, Robert would scream at the top of his lungs if the work was even slightly delayed, which made him incredibly unreasonable, possibly due to his ignorance of genuine work. As a result, I was under constant stress, yet I managed to get by. I turned down a drink invitation from my coworkers that day after working all day and went directly to the cheap supermarket close to my apartment. For the local impoverished students, this grocery always offered fantastic deals. However, they put more discount stickers right before closing time. I didn't hesitate to add several significantly reduced prepared meals to my basket. Maybe this is the supermarket's method of making sure they sell out of all of their prepared foods before the end of the day. Along with the salad, which was on sale for 80% less, I also swung the plastic bag I was using as a reusable shopping bag, which was ready to develop holes from frequent use, as I exited the store. In this late hour of the night, I was walking home when I noticed two women huddled together on a bench in a small, dark park. I would have ignored it if it had just been two women chatting in the park, but there was something strange about them, so I paused and just watched. Based on their similar looks, the two women appeared to be mother and daughter. It was close to 10:00 p.m. In addition, they were somewhat unclean and were dressed extremely casually for the occasion. I walked carefully into the park, listening to their chat while feigning to get a warm drink from the nearby vending machine. "Mom, I'm cold." "It's all right. Just get closer and snuggle." "Thanks, it's much better now." I knew they were a mother and daughter based on their conversation. It appeared like the mother was in her early 50s and the daughter was in her 20s. What became of them? Even though they were wearing branded clothing, their outfits were filthy. I thought of the weather report I had seen on the TV that morning. They warned that although it wouldn't rain, it will get rather chilly tonight. I had never met either of these people before. Although my sense of justice would not allow me to ignore them now that I had seen them, no one would hold it against me if I left. Even so, I wasn't sure if approaching them was appropriate. I couldn't just leave them behind, but I also didn't want to be thought of as a criminal attempting to transport women to my location. Well, nothing happens now. I decided what I wanted to do and went up to the mother and daughter. "I apologize, but I'm not a suspicious person. I don't intend to harm you in any way. It may sound a little optimistic, but the news indicates that it will get really cold tonight. Would you like to come to my apartment if you have nowhere else to go? I realize I'm a total stranger. You can at least warm up in this rundown abode." "What?" "I'll do nothing, I swear. All I can do is offer you a warm bath. I promise. I'll even leave the room if you'd like. Simply put, I don't think it's healthy for women to be alone." The woman needed to reassure me since I was starting to lose my train of thought. "All right, I apologize. What made you come over here? We have nowhere to go and are homeless, as you can see." "Well, isn't it natural to help someone in need?" "What?" "Of course, if you think it's none of my business, I apologize, but—" "No, it's not that." "Then, kindly accompany me. You can at least get warm, even though I can't offer much." I frantically invited the girl and mother to my rundown flat. I offered them the rear room and allowed them to use the bath, even though they appeared astonished by the location to which they had been taken. Since I had no women's clothing, I offered them an old school-issue tracksuit. "I've washed it, though it might smell a bit like mothballs. It's all right. You've already helped us so much. For food, all I have is instant noodles and some prepared meals." "But that's your meal, isn't it?" "Yes, so let's share it." I heated up the prepared meals and made 2 packages of instant noodles, dividing them into bowls and plates as I waited for the two of them to finish their bath. My impoverished bachelor's house has mismatched plates around. Although it was a little awkward, there was nothing I could do about it. Sincerely, I was relieved that I had kept some extra forks and spoons. "I'm sorry I invited you so confidently, but this is all I can offer," I said. "No worries at all." They shook their heads at my apology, but we still appreciate it. Their generosity brought me joy. They introduced themselves once the 3 of us had completed our little supper. "This is Catherine, my daughter. My name is Emma. We haven't had a warm bath or dinner in a very long time," Emma remarked. "My name is Alex." "Alex, are you not just full of justice and kindness?" Emma said this with a smile. "No, I'm just poor. However, you were helpful to us." The majority of individuals would simply turn away, particularly if they were having difficulties. Additionally, I'm sure you were hesitant to welcome women into your house. It's true that I was really skeptical. There are plenty of people in this world who would profit from kindness, but Emma and Catherine didn't seem to be that type of person. Please stay here if you have nowhere else to go. Seeing a light on when I go home from work gives me comfort. I won't force you. It's a rundown apartment. But if it's not too much work, it's a modest, old place that can at least keep you warm in the winter. James would probably laugh and tell me I was too kind if I told him about this. Even so, after just one day, I couldn't bring myself to throw them out. It's like discovering a stray cat and then experiencing the heartbreak of having to give it up once more because you are unable to care for it. Emma and Catherine glanced at each other, paused to consider, then turned to face me and said, "We'll accept your hospitality," grinning with relief. I offered them the rear room as I had intended, and to maintain their privacy, I draped a bath towel in the space left by the thin wall. I made a bed in the kitchenette area by spreading cushions. After giving the two women the folding bed and mattress, that evening ended. Emma left early the following morning, claiming to have some errands to run. I didn't want to be a burden on my run-down flat, so I couldn't say anything as she was leaving to find another somewhere to stay. But Emma did not come back that day or the day after that. In other words, Catherine and I were the only residents of the flat, and I was strangely happy with our new situation. Ultimately, I could now return to a warm, well-lit room instead of the rundown, dark, and lonely chamber I had before. It goes without saying that I began to look forward to getting home from work. "Hi, Alex. I'm back." When I came back, Catherine smiled at me, and I smiled back. In the small kitchen, Catherine would prepare delectable dishes. There weren't many ingredients in the fridge, so on my way home, I'd pick up whatever seemed like it was needed from the regular cheap grocery, and she'd make it into a meal. It was like magic to me. It became a turning moment in my life to have someone wait for me when I returned home. I became aware of the value of people supporting one another after meeting Catherine. I was shocked to see Catherine at work a few days after it started to become the standard for her to be there when I got home. What the hell is this? On my desk, there was a piece of paper. Regardless of how many times I cleaned my face or massaged my eyes, the phrases remained the same. It was a notice of termination. No way. Now that Catherine was living with me, I had to increase my income. But we'd be homeless together if I got fired. I went directly to the president's office since I could not accept this unilateral termination. Robert was sighing heavily as I loudly knocked twice and opened the door without waiting for a response. "Robert, are you there too?" How annoying. "What?" Not sure why I was there, I asked him, not understanding his statement. "Robert, what is the meaning of this?" "I don't know, but isn't this termination notice from you?" I gave him a hard slap on his desk for being fired. Throwing a couple more notices of termination onto his desk, Robert appeared irritated. "You're the fifth person today." "What?" "Yes, 4 more workers have just barged in carrying similar termination notices. I cannot recall releasing any of them." "Is that true?" "What good would it do me to lie?" I scowled at Robert's irritated response. Robert would not gain by my termination. But then, who was giving the workers these notices of termination? I had never been a huge problem for anyone, nor had I ever inspired hatred or resentment in others. Well, this is real though. "What?" Robert grabbed the notice of termination bearing my name off the desk while I was still in astonishment, and before I could stop him, he stamped it with his permission. "Wait, please." "Don't wait. This serves as formal notice of termination. Gather your belongings and exit the business. Presumably, one of the executives is phoning the ineffective ones." Robert then chowed me down like a beast outside the workplace. When I got back to my desk, I saw James was furious and had received a notice of termination as well. James, however, laughed about it because he had been thinking about changing jobs since Robert became president and thought this was an excellent opportunity. Envious of James' upbeat disposition, I packed away my desk. Catherine gave me her regular greeting when I got home. "Hey, hello. You're early for today." Catherine smiled kindly to greet me. I told her everything that had transpired, forcing a grin. Actually, I got fired today. Catherine smiled mischievously, rather than looking surprised. She poured me a cup of hot coffee at the folding table she called a dining table, and I followed her, startled by her response. Taking a taste of the coffee made me feel a little less anxious. First, thank you for your hard work. No, it's... Catherine started talking, and I felt that instead of squandering time, I should start considering the future. Let me reintroduce myself first. Catherine Bellamy is my name. Does that ring any bells? What? Bellamy is my last name. Samuel Bellamy was the name of my father. What? Yes, my father was the former president of the company you worked for. I was speechless at what Catherine had said. More than anything, I was perplexed as to why it hadn't occurred to me earlier. It's not as if the Bellamy surname is particularly common. My mother and I were ejected from our house by my uncle Robert following the death of my father. We ended up being vagrants. He left the house with everything, even our savings. Though I was aware of his rudeness, I was unaware of his extreme badness. After all, Robert was still Catherine's uncle, so I apologize. Continually calling him a jerk would not help her feelings. It's all right. He is the ultimate jerk, the king of jerks. I couldn't help but chuckle at such outstanding assessment. It had been 1 week since we were ejected on the day you discovered us. Really, we were at our wits' end. For this reason, my mother and I cannot help but feel obligated to you for our thanks. You deserve all of that, Alex. Our decision is to exact revenge on Robert. Revenge? I got shares from my father, which he doesn't even know I own, although he could not know that. It's demonstrated by the fact that she wasn't dismissed first. My understanding of Catherine's words was incomplete. When she said Emma was dismissed, what did it mean? My mother Emma works at the company as an accountant. What? Not at all. I had no choice but to speak up. My father had total faith in my mother's accounting abilities despite the fact that my parents were no longer married. Although their relationship didn't work out, they made excellent business partners. I recalled hearing gossip that Emma, who Mr. Bellamy trusted, was also well liked by the managers. They used to claim the business would be oak as long as Emma took care of the bookkeeping. Emma probably stayed hidden in the accounting room because she didn't want anyone to find out that she was managing her ex-husband's accounts. She most likely wished to prevent any needless hassles in light of their divorce. My mother has made all the arrangements over the last 3 days. In an attempt to close the business without Robert realizing, she has started firing staff members one by one. Looking back, as you say, there were undoubtedly indicators. I was the 5th person that day to receive a notice of termination, according to Robert. His demeanor suggests that he must have also gotten termination letters from multiple other employees. After the new company is established, my mother intends to rehire everyone she let go of. The shares are what I own. Robert is not qualified to lead the business. Catherine grinned and had a leader's confidence. Although she seemed like a kind woman to me, she turned out to be really amazing. There was a stir in the workplace a few days after this chat. What? Are you letting me go? This is absurd. That day's meeting saw the board of directors decide to fire Robert with unanimous consent. The board's decision was final and could not be changed. Robert, you can either come work for me or get a new job on your own. What will it be then? You believed in quick thinking, sound judgment, and decisiveness, as I seem to remember. Make a decision quickly. Robert immediately announced his departure from the company as a result of Catherine's pressure. Considering that he had just been at the top of the organization the day before, he must have detested the thought of working under his niece. He has pride in the wrong areas, which makes him a genuine problem. Nevertheless, Robert struggled and was unable to obtain a new employment. Reluctantly, Catherine agreed to keep him on staff as a handyman since she felt bad for him. You're quite generous, Catherine. I believe I'm a fool too, but perhaps my father's genes ran in my family. Perhaps I'll come to regret it as well." Catherine grinned, her eyes dazzling. For my part, Catherine and I eventually started dating after moving into the same room. To put it briefly, Catherine and I have started dating. I've finally broken the habit of never having a girlfriend. I could have danced with delight. I was so happy. Although Catherine expressed her satisfaction with remaining in this apartment, I thought of transferring to a larger home. She expressed her enjoyment of the warmth and intimacy it offered. Though our lifestyle isn't very opulent, we'll manage as long as we help one another. I think so, and I'm going to stay with her going forward. This is the truth. It is stupid to believe that you can manage the work of this organization regardless of your qualifications. You're naturally inclined to give up. The conference room reverberated with my manager Henry's derisive voice. In a moment, that voice seemed to ruin all of my hard work. I joined this job after high school and worked diligently to get several qualifications, which I was proud to have. However, one unsuccessful presentation was enough to raise unanticipated suspicions. I was held entirely responsible for the collapse of a $30 million agreement. Conspiracy was evident in the circumstances, but I had no defense, no excuse, and no proof. All right, I now officially announced Terrence's dismissal. Henry's laughter echoed behind me, and all I could do was sigh. Would this be the end of it all for me? However, life often takes unforeseen turns. I was working part-time at a cafe that day when a college student came up in front of me. "I have been trying to find you. I'll give you 10 times what you make. Please instruct me." She had optimism and resolve in her eyes. My life would be drastically altered by this experience. And a few years later, I was on the verge of making an unexpected reappearance. Terrence is my name. My mother and I became a single-parent household when I was just 3 years old. All that was left for us was a massive debt from consumer loans when my father's business failed, and he ran away overnight. Since then, my mother has put forth a lot of work to raise me, working night shifts at a care facility, working as a grocery cashier, and cleaning apartments. My life was altered by a pivotal moment. I was in the 4th grade of elementary school when it occurred. I began going to the local community center's abacus lesson at my mother's suggestion. I didn't like it at first, but while I worked with numbers, there was something strangely fulfilling about the repetitive clacking of beads. I was addicted before I even realized it. "Mom, I passed the level 3 abacus exam." When my tired mother arrived home, I presented her with my certificate. "Wow, that's amazing." Her weary expression brightened at once. "My son is such a hard worker." I was profoundly affected by her happiness at that precise time. I wanted to add to Mom's joy. I then went on and passed a level higher than my grade on the Chinese characters proficiency test. After that, I also took the English proficiency test. My mom was thrilled every time I certified myself. My greatest satisfaction came from witnessing her pleased, and I progressively became engrossed in obtaining further credentials. By the time I entered middle school and then high school, that passion never waned. I researched certifications a high school student could take and began studying for them one by one. Chinese characters, English, math proficiency tests, bookkeeping. I worked part-time jobs to afford exam fees so as not to burden my mother, who worried about the cost of textbooks. By the time I was a high school sophomore, I had earned more than 10 certifications. English Proficiency Level 2, Kanji Level 2, Math Proficiency Level 2, Bookkeeping Level 2, Basic 8 Skills, Real Estate License. I earned all of them through self-study. I bought second-hand textbooks, studied at the library, used online practice questions, and even sacrificed time with friends to dedicate myself entirely to preparing for certification exams. "You don't have to push yourself so hard," my mother worried. She was afraid I wasn't enjoying a normal high school life. But to me, earning qualifications felt like unlocking new doors to the world. Delving into new knowledge was endlessly exciting. And above all, seeing my mother's joy kept me motivated. She always celebrated my achievements in small, heartfelt ways. "Terrence, you passed the financial planner exam this time." Even after a long day of work, she'd light up, arranging pudding and cake from the convenience store on the table. "You didn't have to spend money on this. It's fine, it's fine. Sometimes you need a sweet treat to recharge and keep going, right?" Even though she must have been exhausted from her night shift, my mother sat beside me, eagerly listening to me talk about the exam. Was it hard? What kind of questions did they ask? Well, there were questions about pension calculations and reviewing life insurance policies. "Oh, by the way, Mom, your current life insurance premium is actually too high. There's a cheaper plan with the same coverage. I think we can save about $50 a month starting next month." Wow, you've even been studying things like that. "I'm always worried about you working so many night shifts. I wanted to find a way to make things a little easier for you." With teary eyes, my mother gently patted my head. The fact that she always made time for me, smiled despite her exhaustion, and supported me in her own way, those moments made me incredibly happy. They also became the driving force for me to tackle the next qualification. In society, being labeled as just a high school graduate or from a single-parent family carries a stigma. But earning certifications gave me a tangible way to prove my worth, and perhaps it was my way of fighting against the struggles of poverty. Of course, I had already given up on going to college by my first year of high school. However, during a parent-teacher meeting, Mr. Hughes, my advisor, cautiously offered some encouragement. "With grades like yours, Terrence, you could aim for a recommendation if you wanted." My mother turned to me, silently waiting for my response. Though she didn't say it aloud, her eyes conveyed the unspoken message: "I'm sorry." It was difficult to come up with the money for higher education. Scholarships were an option, but I couldn't imagine being able to repay the loans. "Mr. Hughes, I'm going to find a job instead." The sad look in Mr. Hughes's eyes and the apologetic expression on my mother's face are still etched in my memory. As if to push away those feelings from everyone around me, I threw myself even deeper into studying for certifications. I first noticed changes in my mother's health during the fall of my second year of high school. "I'm just a little tired," she said with a smile. But her complexion grew worse with each passing day, and I couldn't help but worry. My fears were confirmed when she collapsed at work and was hospitalized. "Taryn, you don't have to push yourself so hard. I'm fine. I can't go to college anyway, so this is just my way of making up for it," I replied with a smile. But in truth, I was using studying as a way to avoid facing reality. Every day, after finishing my part-time job, I would rush to the hospital, spending time by her side and studying from my textbooks until visiting hours were over. As I flipped through my workbooks and glanced at her sleeping face, I noticed how much smaller she had become, her cheeks sunken. The doctor's serious expression, the mounting treatment costs, and my mother's increasingly frail body haunted me. When the cherry blossoms began to fall, my mother quietly passed away as though slipping into a peaceful sleep. Finding a job wasn't easy, but with the support of my school, I practiced interviews, learned business etiquette, and prepared after class. Some companies were willing to interview me after seeing the long list of certifications on my resume. One of those companies was Yates Industries, which specialized in manufacturing and maintaining aircraft parts. During the interview, Mr. Yates, the company president, read through the list of certifications on my resume, calling out each one with a look of astonishment. "Taryn, you've earned some impressive qualifications for someone your age. Did you study for all of these on your own?" In the interview, he started with that question. "Yes, I did. My family wasn't very well off," I candidly explained, sharing how I started studying for certifications, my family's financial struggles, and my decision to forego college. Mr. Yates murmured, crossing his arms as he appeared deep in thought. After a moment, He slowly began to speak. Taryn, you already have a strong foundation of theoretical knowledge. If you can learn to apply that knowledge in practice, there's nothing more powerful. Mr. Yates's words carried a strange yet undeniable weight. Theory and practice are like two wheels of a cart. With both in harmony, you'll grow immensely. Why not test your abilities at our company? His gaze was sincere. Academic background doesn't matter. What's important is the knowledge you have and your drive to improve. And you have both, Taryn. Mr. Yates, you're a kind person who deeply cares for your mother. That's the kind of person I've been looking for. Thank you so much, I said, bowing deeply, struggling to hold back the tears welling up in my eyes. And so, I graduated high school and joined Yates Industries. I was assigned to the sales department, where I struggled with unfamiliar tasks and specialized terminology, but every day felt fulfilling. Most of the other employees were college graduates, but they never cared about my educational background and treated me with the warmth of a parent toward their child. How's it going? Are you getting used to the work? One day, Mr. Yates stopped by the sales department on business and struck up a conversation. Overcome with gratitude, I replied enthusiastically. Yes, there are still some parts I'm struggling with, but everyone here is so kind, and I enjoy coming to work every day. That's great to hear, he said, stroking his thick mustache thoughtfully. For someone your age to have so many certifications is a real asset to our company. We're small, but we've got a lot of talented people. Learn from them and gain as much experience as you can. I nodded firmly, and Mr. Yates smiled, narrowing his eyes in approval. From that point on, I poured all my energy into applying the knowledge I had gained from my certifications in practical settings. During negotiations with clients, I became adept at answering technical questions accurately, leading to more frequent comments like, Taryn from Yates Industries is truly well informed. When I submitted a proposal for improving quality control, Mr. Yates personally reached out to me. Taryn, I reviewed your proposal. It looks like this could cut unnecessary costs by as much as 30%. Yes, I actually applied some methods I learned while earning my equipment management certification. A proposal backed by solid theory is always convincing. Let's implement it right away. Even the workers on site began expressing their gratitude. Following Taryn's suggestions improved our efficiency. I never realized such a simple method could make such a difference. Young employees began seeking my advice on technical matters, and even senior staff occasionally asked for my input. Then, about 6 months after I joined the company, something significant happened. Hey, Taryn. I heard someone call me in the hallway of the sales department. When I turned around, it was Henry, the department manager. Henry was a veteran who had been with the company since its founding. Known for his strong connections with clients, he held immense influence within the company. His opinions carried significant weight, even in decisions about hiring and promotions made by the HR department. Come to the conference room, he said. Settling deeply into an expensive leather chair, he fixed me with a cold stare. Your comment in the meeting earlier was unnecessary. He was referring to the morning sales planning meeting regarding the new deal with a major manufacturer. Henry was pushing for aggressive deadlines and pricing. However, having listened to the voices from the field, I couldn't help but point out that such a schedule could potentially compromise quality. I spoke with the quality control team, and we agreed that allowing a bit more time would. What gives you the right to make such claims? Henry smirked mockingly. I hold a certification in equipment manager management, and based on that knowledge, this schedule would require equipment to operate beyond its safe capacity, which poses safety risks. Ha! There you go again with your certifications. Stop waving around your theoretical nonsense. It's not theoretical. I confirmed this with the field team. Enough. Henry slammed the desk, his voice reverberating through the conference room. Don't talk to me like some know-it-all inspector from who knows where. You have no real understanding of the field, yet you spew these lofty ideas. I've spent 20 years building this line. The sound of his fist hitting the desk echoed loudly. Just because you're one of Mr. Yates's favorites, don't let it go to your head. This company has its own way of doing things. As a newcomer, you have no right to speak out like that. With that, Henry stormed out of the room. Henry was one of the founding members of Yates Industries, and in the early days, he and Mr. Yates reportedly shared a close relationship. However, as Mr. Yates prioritized merit-based practices, Henry, a staunch believer in seniority-based systems, grew resentful of the new approach. This friction deepened, especially with Mr. Yates's openness to young employees' opinions, eventually creating an unspoken divide within the company, the Yates camp and the Henry camp. In fact, it was chilling to hear that Henry had been boasting to the subordinates he recruited into his faction, saying, "One day, I'll be the president of this company." It was likely that I became the target of attacks because Mr. Yates's praise for me didn't sit well with Henry. The people around me, afraid of being dragged into trouble themselves, often turned a blind eye to what was happening. All my proposals were rejected. Important documents mysteriously went missing. Emails to clients were misdirected, leading to complaints. On more than one occasion, meeting minutes were altered, and there was even an incident where confidential client documents were somehow accessed under my name, though I had nothing to do with it. Sorry. No hard feelings. But don't you think it's more of a problem when a young upstart like you oversteps? You need to respect the order of society, you know. Order is everything. I had countless words I wanted to say back, but none of them came out. Every day, I went to work with a stomachache, burdened by the stress of it all. It was especially crushing because I had just begun earning Mr. Yates's trust, making this unreasonable situation all the harder to endure. But I couldn't give up here. I kept telling myself that every single day as I pushed forward. Then, 3 months after the harassment began, the moment arrived. It was during a negotiation with a major airline. "Taryn, please handle the presentation," I was told. The meeting room was filled with senior executives from the client company, and the tension was palpable. This was a $30 million project to supply and maintain aircraft parts, a deal that could determine the future of our company. I nervously opened my materials and began. Our new filter system reduces maintenance costs by 35% compared to conventional products. I explained, moving smoothly through the presentation. I addressed the client's questions with detailed explanations, incorporating my knowledge of the aviation industry. I see. A 35% reduction is significant. Yes. Here are the detailed analysis results. I smoothly explained the details while pointing to the figures displayed on the projector. I actually visited your factory 3 times last month and had detailed discussions with your staff on site. With our staff, the head of the maintenance department leaned forward in interest. Yes, your factory manager mentioned that the time required for filter replacements was causing delays in other inspections. I thought our product might help address that issue. You considered that much. I realized this might seem presumptuous, but I felt it was time for a decision to be made. The room fell silent as I continued. Our new filter reduces replacement time to 1/3 of the conventional product, significantly improving efficiency. A video demonstration played on the projector, showing the process. I see. This is certainly compelling, the maintenance head said, his expression softening. Taryn, right? This is the first proposal we've received that delves so deeply into our field operations. If I may excuse me for interrupting. Henry suddenly stood up and began distributing new documents. I have an important announcement. There is a critical error in the product data Taryn presented. The room buzzed with murmurs. What's this about? I had triple-checked the data, and even my supervisor had verified there were no issues. However, the graphs Henry presented showed data indicating clear defects. Efficiency figures had been altered, and the safety tests allegedly revealed dangerous results. This data came to light during an internal investigation. Ideally, we would have identified these issues before presenting to you, but, Henry, I never. I tried desperately to defend myself, but Henry piled on. Additionally, there are doubts surrounding the certification Taryn presented to the client. What? Explain this right now. Voices clamored angrily in the meeting room, which descended into chaos. As a result, the multi-million-dollar deal fell through, and our relationship with the client deteriorated severely. Naturally, the company's reputation took a significant hit, and I was held responsible for the damage, ultimately receiving a recommendation to resign. This is the reality. No matter how many qualifications you have, with only a high school diploma, thinking you can handle this company's work is naive. It's only natural for you to leave. Pack your things and get out before Mr. Yates returns from his business trip. Henry delivered his harsh words with a triumphant smile, showing no mercy. With no way to reveal the truth, I could only endure the cold stares from my colleagues, sighing heavily. By the time Mr. Yates returned from his business trip, everything was already over. Henry twisted the truth, reporting that Taryn admitted to misconduct and voluntarily chose to resign, without even a chance to reveal the truth. I was forced to leave the company. As much as I felt anger at the absurdity of it all, a strange sense of calm settled over me. I can't let this defeat me, not for Mum's sake. However, we regret to inform you that we have decided not to move forward with your application. We appreciate your interest. Faced with yet another rejection letter from a company I thought for sure would hire me this time, I let out what must have been my 100th heavy sigh. 2 months into my job search, this marked the 12th company to reject my application. As much as I tried not to think about it, I couldn't help but notice how the interviewers' expressions seemed to darken the moment they saw my highest level of education listed as high school. No matter how many certifications I had, I couldn't compete with a college degree. It was a truth I now painfully understood. To be honest, our company policy makes it difficult to hire someone as a full-time employee without a college degree, the HR representative had said. The weight of those words bore down on me as I walked home in defeat. I knew securing a full-time position would be ideal, but at this rate, I felt like I might never find work. With no other options, I reluctantly decided to take on part-time jobs while continuing my job search. Excuse me, are you still hiring for part-time staff? I had stopped in front of a trendy cafe with a stylish exterior and spotted a flyer advertising job openings. Without thinking, I walked in and spoke to someone who appeared to be the manager. Since I always carried my resume with me, I explained my situation. The manager kindly conducted an impromptu interview and hired me on the spot, asking me to start the next day. Donning a chic beige apron and a matching cap that didn't suit me in the slightest, I began my first day as a cafe employee. The work, especially dealing with customers, was challenging, but unlike my previous job, the manager and my coworkers were kind. For the first time in a while, I began to enjoy working again. Welcome. As usual, I greeted the next customer with a bow as they walked through the door. God, could it be Taryn? I looked up at the familiar voice and saw someone I recognized instantly. Melanie. That's right. I'm so glad you remember me. The woman smiling warmly was Melanie, someone I had first met 3 years ago during the CPA exam. It was the day of the taxation law exam, specifically for consumption tax. The tense atmosphere in the exam hall was palpable. She, seated next to me, had dropped her eraser, which I picked up for her. That was how we first spoke before the exam started. Melanie was visibly nervous, her hands trembling so much that she could barely hold her exam ticket properly. I instinctively asked, "Are you okay?" She gave an apologetic smile and replied, "Thank you. It's my first tax accountant exam, and I'm so nervous." I'm nervous too, but I'm sure everyone feels the same. Let's do our best together. When I said that, she looked visibly relieved. Since then, we kept running into each other at the same exam venues for certifications like the FP Skills Test and the IT Specialist exam. By chance, we were often seated near each other, and over time, we became a source of mutual encouragement. After every exam, we would almost always end up at a nearby cafe, discussing study methods or debating particularly tough questions. She had told me she was studying business administration at university while also working hard to earn certifications. Now, seeing me in my cafe uniform felt a little embarrassing, but her warm smile was just as it had been back then. It felt as though the days we supported each other at the exam halls had only been yesterday. Melanie, now a college student, was in the midst of her job search. In her sleek recruit suit, she exuded an even greater sense of grace than before. Dressed in a classic black jacket and skirt with a white blouse, her poised demeanor carried an undeniable elegance that turned heads. "Taryn, I can't believe I'd run into you here. Why are you working part-time? Someone with your certifications." Her eyes reflected genuine curiosity. Caught off guard by her question, I struggled to find the words. How could I explain I was framed by my manager and forced out of my job? I couldn't bring myself to share such a pathetic truth. "Well, you see, it's just that. Excuse me." A call came from a table in the back, breaking the tension. I gave a quick nod to Melanie, relieved by the interruption. "Please excuse me." For the rest of her visit, I focused on my work, making a point not to look in her direction. Her questioning gaze felt like it was piercing into my back, but right now, I didn't even feel worthy of speaking to her as an equal. Once, we had encouraged and pushed each other to improve. But now, rather than revealing the miserable truth about my life, I preferred to keep interacting with her as just a cafe worker. I didn't want to expose any more of my downfall in front of Melanie. "See you tomorrow," I said as I finished my shift and prepared to leave through the back room. "Taryn." "Whoa, Melanie," I exclaimed, startled to find her waiting for me. "I'm sorry, but I have a favor to ask." She hesitated slightly, then spoke with a cautious tone. "You have a small and medium enterprise consultant certification, don't you?" Yes, I do, but..." Melanie's face lit up instantly, her expression blooming like a flower. "I knew it. I've been curious for a long time. I always saw you at those difficult exam venues, and you passed them all on the first try, right?" Her voice carried an unexpected fervor as she said something that took me by surprise. "Taryn, this is a huge favor. Could you tutor me?" "What?" I instinctively glanced around, unsure of how to respond. "I don't think I'm qualified to teach anyone. Please." Melanie leaned in, her voice firm with determination. "I failed the CPA exam 3 times. I'm completely lost and don't know what to do anymore." Her eyes were filled with such earnestness that I couldn't bring myself to refuse. "My university studies aren't enough. The consultant exam overlaps a lot with the CPA exam in areas like financial analysis and corporate management, right? On top of that, it requires practical analytical skills. Someone like you, who has both perspectives, could really help me. Of course, I won't ask you to do it for free." "What?" "Twice a week, 2 hours each session, at a cafe near here. I'll pay you 10 times your current hourly wage." Her detailed proposal and unwavering passion left me no choice but to nod in agreement. "All right, but I can't accept payment from a student. Let's just settle for you covering the cost of my drinks during our sessions." Melanie smiled brightly but nodded in acceptance. We agreed to meet at a nearby cafe next Saturday at 3:00 p.m. "Looking forward to Saturday," she said before walking away. As I watched her confident stride, I murmured to myself, "Can I really teach her?" But little did I know this reunion would end up changing my life significantly. For now, the key points for understanding corporate valuation methods in this section are: seated by the window, bathed in the soft spring sunlight, I continued explaining as I pointed to Melanie's textbook. When evaluating a company using the DCF method, forecasting future cash flows is crucial. This is especially important for small to medium-sized businesses where industry trends in. I see. Until now, I've only had textbook knowledge, but your practical perspective makes it so much easier to understand. Her sincere dedication to learning naturally fueled my own motivation. Your explanations are clearer than my university professors, she said with a smile. Do you think so? I scratched my head, feeling slightly embarrassed. Oh no, it's already this late. When I glanced at the clock, it was already past 5:00 p.m. For next time, we'll focus on analyzing financial statements for corporate evaluation. I'll prepare some practice problems using real-world examples from publicly listed companies. Really? Are you sure it's okay for you to go that far for me? Yeah, I don't have much going on besides my part-time job. When I replied with a smile, Melanie pouted slightly and said, See, that's exactly why you're such a good person. You're way too humble. Hearing someone genuinely acknowledge me like that brought me a pure, simple happiness. Before I realized it, these tutoring sessions with Melanie had become a priceless part of my life. Melanie looked at me with genuine admiration in her eyes. Once, I had been mocked, and my efforts and knowledge were completely dismissed at work. But now, there was someone who truly appreciated my abilities. That simple fact slowly began to heal the deep wounds in my heart. As the sun set and the cafe was filled with the warm orange glow of dusk, we sat by the window, poring over practice problems as usual. On the table bathed in the golden light, Melanie kept flipping back and forth on the same page, unusually quiet today. She usually asked questions, but today, she remained silent. Is this part difficult to understand? When I called out to her, Melanie suddenly looked up as if snapped out of a trance. Come to think of it, Taryn, you hold an actuary certification, right? Yes, I do. I've taken that exam 3 times and failed every single one. It's such a challenging certification, with only a few hundred people in Japan holding it. You're amazing, really. She held her coffee cup gently in both hands, gazing distantly as she continued. To be honest, when I first started, I was just taking certifications because everyone around me told me to. My parents would say, if you want to get into a top-tier company, you need certifications. But deep down, I thought certifications were pointless. She smiled shyly and said, but you know, there was someone I kept seeing at the exam venues. That person was always studying so hard, solving problems even during breaks. Watching them, I thought, I don't want to lose to this person. I ended up seeing you as my rival, Taryn, without even realizing it. She chuckled softly as she spoke. Then, strangely enough, I started enjoying it. I'd set goals like mastering this section by the next exam or fully understanding a particular problem. Before I knew it, I was studying with all my heart. Melanie paused for a moment, her expression turning serious. I was born into a pretty fortunate family, prestigious private schools, a top-tier university. Honestly, I could get by without much effort in an environment like that, so I never really had the experience of dedicating myself to something with everything I had. She gazed out the window, her voice soft but steady. But watching you, Taryn, I realized something. The importance of working hard, struggling, and persevering no matter what. Up until now, I was just walking along the path that was laid out for me. But I've learned that climbing up on your own strength is so much more meaningful. She turned to face me, her clear eyes meeting mine. Studying with you has been so enjoyable. Every time I gain new knowledge, it feels like my world is expanding. And now, I truly understand how invaluable the time spent giving your all can be. A faint blush spread across her cheeks as she smiled gently. That's why. Thank you. Thanks to you, I feel like I've grown a little. I didn't know how to respond to her words. I could only look at Melanie, who seemed to be glowing before my eyes. I could feel that something inside her was indeed changing. A month later, our study sessions continued as usual. While waiting for her, I heard her familiar voice from above. "Sorry for being late." "No worries." "Huh." When I looked up, I saw Melanie standing, slightly out of breath, accompanied by an elegant elderly woman in a refined kimono. "Actually, I brought my grandmother with me today," Melanie said with a slight blush, looking a little embarrassed as she continued. "I'm really close to her, and I've been telling her all about you, Terrence." She placed her hand on her grandmother's arm with a joyful smile. She said, "If he's such a wonderful person, I'd love to meet him, so I had to bring her along." Her expression was proud, as if she were introducing someone very special. "Nice to meet you. I'm Chloe, Melanie's grandmother. Thank you for taking care of her." Her gesture as she extended her hand carried a certain Western elegance. Bowing slightly, I introduced myself. "I'm Terrence. It's a pleasure to meet you as well." "Oh no, the pleasure is mine. I hope I'm not intruding on your study time." Chloe's demeanor was soft yet poised, exuding an undeniable grace. "I've heard so much about you from Melanie. English, bookkeeping, even a caregiving qualification. You hold so many certifications. I'm impressed." "Thank you, but I don't think I'm worthy of such praise." Before I could finish, Chloe's expression suddenly changed. Her face tightened with a hint of discomfort, suddenly turning pale as she seemed on the verge of collapsing. "Grandma." Melanie rushed to support her, panic evident in her voice. "I'm fine, just a little tired." I pushed her too much. What should I do? Melanie's voice was trembling. "Chloe, please take a seat," I said in a calm voice, discreetly helping her into a chair. From my time caring for my mother, I had developed the habit of always carrying a blood pressure monitor. I quickly retrieved it from my bag and wrapped the cuff around Chloe's wrist. "Should we call an ambulance?" Melanie asked anxiously. But I shook my head gently. "It's okay, let's check her vitals first." While taking her blood pressure with practiced ease, I simultaneously checked her pulse on her other wrist. The paramedic training I completed during my mother's caregiving days was coming in handy here. "Her blood pressure is slightly elevated, but it's not an emergency." "Thank goodness." Melanie sighed with visible relief. "I have a chronic condition and was prescribed nitroglycerin by my primary doctor. I'm sorry for causing trouble like this." "It's no trouble at all. Just take it easy and rest." Chloe's breathing steadied, and her complexion gradually began to improve. "My apologies, truly. This was meant to be a pleasant meeting, and I ended up causing you so much concern." "Please don't worry about it. I'm just glad it wasn't anything serious. Make sure to visit your doctor soon for a follow-up." "Yes, I will." As she said this, Chloe gazed intently at me. Her eyes held a warmth that felt nostalgic, as if remembering something dear from long ago. "I thought so. You're Sophia's son, aren't you?" The mention of that name made my heart leap. I couldn't believe I had encountered someone who knew my mother in such an unexpected place. "Yes, Sophia is my mother," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. Tears began to glisten in Chloe's eyes. She was such a wonderful person. Whenever someone wasn't feeling well, she would always rush to their side. I owe so much to Sophia. Chloe's expression softened with fond memories. About 5 years ago, I broke my leg and had to rely on a day service. Sophia was the one who took care of me. She continued, lifting her teacup gracefully and taking a small sip. At first, I didn't want to go to day service. It felt like I was being treated like an old woman. "My grandma always feels young at heart," Melanie chimed in with a teasing smile. But Sophia was different from the other staff. She treated me like a friend, not a patient. "That made me so happy," Chloe said, her eyes beginning to well up. I ended up sharing all kinds of stories with her, and she would always say, "Chloe, your stories are so insightful." She listened so intently, and I felt so appreciated. I couldn't help but give her plenty of tea sweets. I hope I didn't trouble her. I couldn't stop a small gasp from escaping. The fancy Japanese sweets my mother used to bring home. Those elegant green jelly confections or flower-shaped treats. Those were from you, weren't they? Yes, they were leftover sweets from my tea ceremony classes. She'd always say, "My son loves these," and take them home so happily, Chloe said, her voice trembling slightly. But near the end, she wasn't feeling well, and she didn't tell anyone. My mother never wanted to burden others. One day, she just stopped coming, and the next time I asked about her. Melanie gently took Chloe's hand in hers. "Sophia often talked about you," Chloe said after a brief pause, lowering her gaze as if recalling my mother's words. "I have nothing to be proud of. I work night shifts and juggle part-time jobs, yet I still can't provide my child with a decent life. I feel so ashamed as a mother." Her words squeezed my chest with sharp pain, but Chloe continued. "But if there's one thing I'm proud of, it's Terrence." My vision blurred as tears welled up. I can't give him the kind of support a mother should, but even so, he works so hard, earning certification after certification. Late into the night, he's always studying with his books open. Watching Terrence's determination makes me feel like I need to work hard too. It makes me believe we can't let poverty defeat us. He's my light. I tried to hold back the tears, but they streamed down my face uncontrollably. "Mom." "Until the very end, she was proud of you," Chloe said. "Terrence might have been unlucky to have a mother like me, but when I see how hard he works, I feel truly grateful for the life I was given." Melanie wiped at her eyes, clearly moved. Chloe continued speaking softly. "She was such a wonderful mother, and that love and pride she had for you have clearly shaped who you are today. When I saw how you cared for me earlier, I felt deeply reassured. I'm so glad I had the chance to meet you, Chloe." I nodded slightly, wiping my eyes with a handkerchief. My mother's love and pride still lived on within me as vividly as ever. I had never felt that truth as clearly as I did at this moment. Chloe straightened her posture and looked at me with a composed expression. "Melanie mentioned you're working part-time at a cafe now." Her words made me lower my eyes in shame. "What happened with all those certifications? How did you end up here?" Her voice was filled with a genuine kindness that made it impossible to feel defensive. I thought perhaps, if there's any way I could help. "No. I'm so sorry for troubling you," I stammered, bowing deeply. I felt embarrassed and unworthy, burdening someone connected to my mother. But Chloe smiled softly, her expression filled with understanding. "Sophia truly helped me back then. She treated me as a person, not just an old woman. Now, it's my turn to give back." Her words brought an image of my mother's gentle smile flooding into my mind. She had always practiced kindness and compassion so naturally, just as Chloe was now offering me. "Will you tell me your story?" Chloe's voice was as gentle as my mother's had been. 2 years later, I found myself back at my former workplace, Yates Industries. And there I stood, face to face with Henry. "Long time no see, Henry. I'm here to discuss the future of Yates Industries." "Ha, the nerve." He sneered, leaning back into his expensive leather chair with his feet propped up on the table. "I don't have time to waste on a nobody like you." He smirked. "You're still just a part-timer, aren't you? What's with the suit? Trying to play dress-up?" He let out an exaggerated sigh, flaunting his luxury watch with a deliberate flick of his wrist. "Fine, I'll humor you for a bit. What was your name again? Terrence, wasn't it?" He looked down on me with the same disdain as before. When I returned to Yates Industries after so long, the atmosphere felt noticeably heavier than before. As Henry continued his tiresome self-aggrandizing talk, I found myself growing weary, all while mentally organizing what I needed to say. "Since you're here, I assumed you're working on something related to us. The time had come. Yes, I am currently working in this capacity. Allow me to formally introduce myself, I said calmly, pulling a business card from my suit pocket and placing it on the table. Oh, let me guess. You've managed to crawl your way into some small-time company. Well, that's about all a high school graduate like you could hope for. The conversation abruptly stopped the moment Henry picked up the business card. Inspire Bank, Loan Management Department. Manager? His haughty demeanor froze in place, his voice cracking in disbelief. It was understandable. Inspire Bank was one of the leading megabanks in Japan's financial sector. Its reputation and authority in lending to small and medium-sized businesses were unparalleled. The decisions made by its loan management division were said to determine the future of companies, wielding enough influence to decide the very fate of a business. The arrogance that had filled the room moments ago disappeared, replaced by the sight of sweat beading on Henry's forehead. Wait a minute. How did you end up in a position like this? There's no way someone like you could just walk into Inspire Bank. His panic was understandable. The subordinate he had relentlessly bullied now held the authority to determine the fate of his company's funding. As I watched the shock on Henry's face, my mind drifted back to 2 years ago, to that day at the cafe when Chloe had listened to my story with her warm, thoughtful gaze. After hearing my story, Chloe had asked me a question that caught me off guard. Taryn, didn't you mention you have an actuary certification? Yes, I do, I replied. What other certifications do you have? Securities analyst, consultant, FP level 1. As I listed them, Chloe's eyes lit up. Taryn, how would you feel about joining our bank? What? The knowledge and experience you've gained, and more importantly, your empathy for others, are exactly what we need. She smiled. I'm Chloe Anderson, the wife of the chairman of Inspire Bank. I used to handle some of the bank's most challenging loan cases. Inspire Bank. Yes, I'm still deeply involved in the bank's operations. I was at a loss for words. Inspire Bank. One of Japan's premier megabanks. To think that Chloe was the chairman's wife. Her eyes held a sincere and unwavering light. Because you earned your certifications while caring for your mother and have real-world experience, you're uniquely equipped to see the true essence of a company. Chloe's words were like a beam of light piercing through the darkness, igniting hope in my heart. Shortly after, I joined Inspire Bank with her recommendation. Though I started as a general employee, I quickly made a name for myself by leveraging my certifications and practical experience in corporate analysis and financial due diligence. From small-scale business recovery projects to major corporate restructurings, I earned a reputation for listening to stakeholders and crafting tailored solutions. Taryn's analysis isn't just theoretical. He understands the struggles of business owners and the feelings of their employees. Always rated highest by my boss, within 2 years, I achieved rapid promotions and was now the manager of the loan management department, entrusted with decisions that shaped the future of countless companies. I turned my attention back to Henry. I'm Taryn, manager of the loan management department at Inspire Bank. I'm here today to discuss your company's loan case and have a few questions regarding your financial practices over the past 3 years, particularly those handled by Henry. I could see the blood drain from his face, and sweat began to trickle from his forehead down to his neck. You're holding a grudge. This is underhanded. Do you think this kind of abusive power will be tolerated? Spittle flew as he shouted, but I remained calm. No, this is purely business, I replied firmly. At that moment, the conference room door swung open. What's going on here, Mr. Yates? Henry's bravado crumbled as he turned to see the company president enter, clearly flustered. I got a call from Taryn earlier. He told me there was something critical about the loan case, so I cut my business trip short to be here. Mr. Yates, he's just bluffing. It's a waste of time to take him seriously. Taryn would never resort to something like that. He's a loan officer from Inspire Bank. Now let's hear what he has to say, Mr. Yates replied firmly, sinking deeply into his chair. I opened my bag calmly, taking out the documents and arranging them on the table. Could you please explain this document? This is, Henry stammered, struggling to find words. We have detailed investigation results regarding your company's fraudulent accounting practices. These are all connected to projects Henry was involved in. Fraudulent accounting. Henry, what's the meaning of this? Mr. Yates pressed Henry, his voice rising. Well, the increased capital expenditures last year, payments to fictitious vendors, and particularly the doctored documents presented during the negotiation with the airline handled by Terran. These should sound familiar to you, I said, watching as Henry gasped. The deal with the airline wasn't sabotage just to harass me. The goal was to inflate the original contract amount from $30 million to $35 million, allowing you to pocket the $5 million difference. Following the negotiation, $300,000 was paid to a fictitious subcontractor, TSK Engineering, under your authorization. Are you here for revenge? Revenge? No. Just a coincidence, I replied calmly. The irregularities were discovered during a routine audit by the Loan Management Department. As we examined Henry's activities, these details surfaced unexpectedly. I paused, then continued. Based on these findings, Inspire Bank has decided to terminate all loans to Yates Industries. What? Mr. Yates's face turned pale, his distress palpable. The documents you used to try to force me out have ironically become the basis for ending your company's financing. A curious twist of fate, isn't it? You think this is acceptable? You're joking if you believe this will work, Henry shouted, his anger boiling over. The one who's out of line here is you, isn't it? I maintained a firm tone as I pulled out another set of documents. These are legal opinions from our attorneys stating that your actions warrant further legal action. Mr. Yates buried his head in his hands. What an irreparable mess. Suddenly, Henry lashed out in desperation. It was all Mr. Yates's orders. The fraudulent accounting, the shady financial transactions. He's the one who instructed me. What nonsense! Mr. Yates stood abruptly, his voice filled with anger. Don't you see? Mr. Yates told me to make the numbers look good at any cost, so I simply followed his orders. Even the data I falsified for the airline deal was done to align with his directives. That's a lie. It's all Mr. Yates is doing. I was just his puppet. There must be evidence, like his stamp on the documents. That's enough. I quietly brought out a new stack of evidence. We have comprehensive proof of Henry's fraudulent transactions carried out independently. Henry froze, his body stiffening at my words. You underestimated me, didn't you? But as a certified bookkeeping specialist, I identified your irregularities long ago. I placed the new evidence firmly on the table. Henry, you passed off various accounting tasks to me because you wanted to avoid the effort yourself. That gave me access to the evidence I needed. I held up a USB drive and continued. After you forced me out, you attempted to delete records from the financial system, didn't you? Henry gasped again. But I had already backed up the data. Copies of everything are securely stored, so your efforts were futile. Damn it. Henry, you've done something unforgivable. Mr. Yates's anger was palpable. I continued speaking. And it appears that the funds you misappropriated were redirected for other purposes. Further investigations are underway regarding this matter as well. So the issue isn't limited to Henry's misconduct, is it? I nodded firmly. Henry, you've let me down. Mr. Yates's voice carried a mixture of anger, disappointment, and sorrow. The emotions of a leader betrayed by someone he had trusted for years. You misused $15 million in capital investment funds. You forged my approval stamp. And in this manner, Mr. Yates's anger, more intense than I had ever seen, made Henry shrink further into himself. Mr. Yates, I can explain. Silence. His roar echoed through the meeting room. I was puzzled. I couldn't believe Taryn would fabricate anything, but to think there was such a scheme behind it all. Henry, as a department head, as a candidate for vice president, I trusted you. And yet, Mr. Yates shot Henry a sharp look before turning to me. I owe you an apology. I did something unforgivable to you. He bowed deeply, a gesture filled with the weight of his pride as a leader and his acknowledgement of his failure. I allowed someone like Henry to dictate my actions and drove out a talented employee like you. On top of that, I failed to see his corruption. He clenched his fists. I am unfit to be president. Raising his head, Mr. Yates looked at me with a desperate plea in his eyes. Could you give me another chance? As president, I must protect the lives and futures of my employees. I ask for your help to make that possible. There was no pride or arrogance left, only the sincerity of a man trying to take responsibility. Mr. Yates, I began quietly. Do you remember the day of my interview 5 years ago? Mr. Yates nodded firmly. When I handed you my resume, you said something I've never forgotten. I paused, revisiting that moment in my mind. Academics don't matter. What's important are knowledge and the drive to improve. You have both, Taryn. You looked at me as a person, not just a set of qualifications. Mr. Yates's eyes glistened with emotion. Yes, I remember. I've carried those words with me ever since, I said, pulling out new documents. That's why we've drafted a comprehensive restructuring plan for your company. What? Based on my expertise as an SME consultant and actuary, I've prepared a 5-year recovery plan. It includes projections for the aviation industry's capital investment plans and accompanying cash flow forecasts. As I spread the documents across the table, I continued, however, there are conditions. Yates Industries must overhaul its management structure and establish a new framework. Most importantly, you're suggesting we limit unilateral authority at the top. I agree. We cannot allow another Henry to emerge. After a firm nod, I extended my hand. Mr. Yates looked at me with the same warm, fatherly gaze he had during my interview years ago and shook my hand with resolve. A month later. During a visit to Yates Industries regarding the loan, Mr. Yates informed me about Henry's current situation. Henry had been terminated with cause and was under investigation for fraudulent accounting and embezzlement of company funds. He was being interrogated by the police. The total amount embezzled exceeded $2 million, and it was clear that a prison sentence would be inevitable once the case went to trial. By chance, I saw Henry on the street one day. The once proud man was unrecognizable. His suit was wrinkled, his beard had grown unkempt, and his vacant eyes didn't glare at anyone. They simply stared into the void. Later, Henry was sentenced to prison, and the court ordered him to pay damages to the company. After his release, no one knew where he went. Meanwhile, Yates Industries began its journey toward renewal. As the president, I failed to recognize the flaws in our company's culture. Henry's actions caused undue stress to everyone here. I know an apology can't undo the damage, Mr. Yates said, bowing deeply to the assembled employees. Not a word was spoken. The employees waited for what he would say next. Slowly, Mr. Yates raised his head and looked at each of them in turn. From this moment, we must change together. Thus, Yates Industries launched a new office for corporate reform to spearhead a comprehensive transformation. The Reform Office brought together young and mid-career employees from various departments to propose practical improvements, ranging from streamlining workflows to simplifying approval processes. One of the highest priorities was implementing a new accounting system to prevent fraud. Spending above a certain threshold required multiple approvals, and transaction records were fully digitized to ensure traceability. The unilateral authority of department heads was also restricted, and a system was established where critical decisions required oversight from multiple parties. Additionally, The company enhanced its whistleblowing system, allowing employees to communicate their concerns directly to management. Alongside these reforms, Yates Industries was transforming into a more transparent and open organization, one where everyone felt encouraged to share their opinions. A month passed, and the results began to show. We've reduced work hours by 30%. The new accounting system allowed us to present clear figures to our clients, and we're getting positive responses towards signing contracts. Mr. Yates listened to these updates with a radiant expression, his eyes moist with emotion as he absorbed the good news from his team. Inspire Bank also recognized these efforts, deciding to continue their financial support for Yates Industries. Mr. Yates expressed his gratitude during a phone call. "You, Taryn, have been our greatest fortune. I'll continue to count on you." "Yes," I replied, feeling the weight of his words, something I would never forget. 5 years later, my contributions to Yates Industries' transformation earned me a spot as a founding member of a new bank in Asia. 7 years had passed since I joined Inspire Bank. Singapore is crucial as a financial hub in Asia. "We need your analysis, Taryn," the project leader said as we left a meeting room. I nodded with a smile. "And as for my relationship with Melanie, sorry, I'm late." "I thought you forgot about our plans," she said, pouting. Melanie's hair swayed gently in the breeze, and her white dress made her look like an angel. Even the way she pouted was incredibly cute, and I couldn't help but smile. After months of busy overseas work, today was the long-awaited date with Melanie that we had planned 3 months ago. I'm so excited about the amusement park. Me too. When we first met, Melanie was a university student. Now, she was a working professional, leading a busy life as an MR for a pharmaceutical company. We spent the day enjoying go-karts, spinning teacups, and roller coasters, laughing so much we nearly lost our voices, acting as if we were kids again. As the sun set in perfect timing, we decided to ride the Ferris wheel. "Taryn, Her sudden serious gaze caught me off guard, leaving me at a loss for words. I could feel my face turning red and instinctively looked toward the night skyline to hide it. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" "Huh." Melanie's cheeks flushed red. Well, it's just. Of course, I mean the view too." My heart pounded fiercely in my chest. Today, I had to say it. No more hesitation. Summoning all my courage, I opened my mouth. "Melanie, I like." Just then, the gondola swayed, and Melanie instinctively clung to me. "Sorry." As she tried to pull away, I gently held her closer. "I like you, Melanie." "So, I like you too, Taryn. I always have, from the moment we met." Before I realized it, our lips met in a tender kiss. Next week, my life of traveling overseas would begin once again. As we parted, Melanie leaned in close and whispered in my ear, "You know, I really love kids." What does that mean? No one can live alone. We love, and we are loved. Sometimes we get hurt. Sometimes we give or receive help. What truly matters isn't education or status. It's living earnestly for someone, for something, and realizing how fortunate you are to have people who respond to those efforts with their own care and support. That's the answer my mother taught me, and it has become the guiding principle of my life.